My 10-year-old daughter was alone in a hotel lobby, fighting for every breath, while my parents and my brother boarded a private catamaran with chilled champagne waiting on the deck. They knew she was sick. They knew she was frightened, and they left anyway because the excursion was non-refundable. 3 hours later, my father looked me straight in the eye and said, "She's fine now. Stop making trouble." I did not scream. I did not threaten him. I made one quiet phone call. By sunset, the police were at the resort, the hotel had locked down its security footage, and the family business my father had spent 30 years protecting was suddenly at risk. But I am getting ahead of myself. Hello, my name is Claire Bennett. I am 38 years old. I live outside Richmond, Virginia, and I work as a corporate compliance investigator. That means companies call me when someone has lied, stolen, hidden evidence, or convinced themselves that rules only apply to other people. For years, I believed my job had made me good at recognizing danger. I was wrong. The danger I missed was inside my own family. It began with a phone call at 11:18 on a Monday morning. I was sitting in a conference room reviewing travel expense fraud at a medical silk company when my cell phone vibrated across the table. The number was unfamiliar, with a South Carolina area code. I almost ignored it. My daughter, Lucy, was spending 4 days at an oceanfront resort near Hilton Head with my parents, my younger brother Nathan, his wife Brooke, and their 2 children. The trip had been my mother's idea. She called it a grandchildren's memory weekend. I called it an opportunity for something I had spent years pretending was only slightly broken. My parents had always favored Nathan. He was charming, athletic, loud, and skilled at making every room feel like a stage designed for him. I was careful, observant, and quiet. In our family, quiet meant weak. After my divorce, that judgment became worse. My father, Richard, treated my single motherhood like proof that I had failed a test Nathan had passed. My mother, Diane, smiled while saying cruel things. "You worry too much. Claire, you make Lucy nervous. You should let her toughen up." Lucy was sensitive, but not fragile. She loved astronomy, mystery novels, and collecting smooth stones from riverbanks. She also had mild seasonal asthma, which was controlled with an inhaler. Before the trip, I packed 2 inhalers, her insurance card, my contact information, and a written medication sheet. I showed my mother where everything was. Twice. She laughed and said, "We raised 2 children. We can manage 1 little girl." Those words came back to when I answered the unknown number. "Is this Claire Bennett?" "Yes. My name is Dr. Marcus Reed. I'm calling from Coastal Regional Medical Center. Your daughter Lucy is here with us." The room disappeared. I could still see the polished table, the projector screen, and the faces of 3 executives waiting for me to continue the meeting. But they felt very far away. What happened? Lucy experienced a severe allergic reaction combined with respiratory distress. She is stable now, but she required epinephrine, oxygen, and emergency treatment. I stood so quickly my chair struck the wall. "Where is my family?" There was a pause. "I'm not sure," he said carefully. A hotel employee accompanied her until law enforcement helped locate a temporary guardian. "We have been trying to reach the adults who were supervising her." The sentence did not make sense. A hotel employee. Temporary guardian. Put her on the phone. "She's awake, but exhausted. I can let her speak briefly." A few seconds later, I heard a small, rough voice. "Mom." Every part of me turned cold. "I'm here, baby. I'm coming right now." I told Grandma my throat hurt. "I know. You don't have to explain yet. They went without me." I closed my eyes. "Who went without you?" "The boat." Grandpa said I was trying to ruin it. A nurse gently took the phone back. I left the conference room without explaining anything. My manager followed me into the hallway, and when he saw my face, he simply said, "Go. We'll handle everything here." The hospital was almost 2 hours away. I called my mother before I reached the parking garage. No answer. I called my father. No answer. I called Nathan. He answered on the second ring. Music and wind exploded through the speaker. "Hey, Claire," he shouted. "You would love this boat. We're near this little island where the water is completely clear. Where is Lucy?" The music continued for a second. Then Nathan's voice changed. "She stayed at the hotel." My hand tightened around the steering wheel. "Why?" "She wasn't feeling great." "What does that mean?" She said her mouth felt itchy. Then she started breathing weird and crying. Mom thought it was anxiety. I pulled onto the highway. "You left my 10-year-old daughter alone while she was having trouble breathing." She wasn't alone. She was in the lobby. There were employees everywhere. "She is 10. Claire, don't do this." "Do what?" "Turn everything into a federal investigation." Mom gave her the inhaler. "Did it help?" "I don't know. We had to leave." "You had to leave." "The boat only waits 15 minutes. Dad already paid almost $4,000 for the package." I heard laughter behind him. Someone opened a bottle. Then Brooke called out, "Tell her Lucy is fine. The hotel said they'd watch her." My vision narrowed. Who at the hotel agreed to watch her? Nathan did not answer. "Nathan, give me a name." "I don't know." "What front desk?" "Lady." "Claire, I'm on the water. The signal's bad. The hospital called me." The music disappeared from my awareness. "What?" "Lucy is in the emergency department. She needed epinephrine and oxygen." For the first time, Nathan sounded afraid. That can't be right. It is right. Mom said she was pretending. I ended the call. I drove faster than I should have, then forced myself to slow down because Lucy needed me alive. During that drive, 3 different family members texted me. My mother wrote Yuhuai estiram tigoan siang eti harguay. Pilaisis don't pinaik. My brother wrote, Kaan no itmasarayos. My father wrote Shishiesef dunati barasas taifa latth. That last message told me everything. Not, is Lucy okay? Not, we are coming back. Not, we made a terrible mistake. He was worried about embarrassment. At the hospital, a nurse led me to a pediatric room. Lucy looked tiny beneath the white blanket. Her skin was pale, her eyes were swollen, and a clear tube delivered oxygen beneath her nose. There was medical tape on her hand and a red rash along her neck. The moment she saw me, she started crying. I held her carefully. I tried to tell them. She whispered, I believe you. Grandma said if I kept coughing, everybody would miss the boat. I felt anger rise inside me so sharply that I tasted metal. But I kept my voice calm. What happened after they left? Lucy stared at the blanket. They put me on a couch near the elevators. Grandpa told me to drink water and stop scaring people. Then they all walked out. Did anyone stay? No. How did you get help? A man named Eli saw me fall. Eli Turner was the assistant hotel manager. He arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later carrying Lucy's backpack and one pink sneaker. He looked shaken. He told me he had been reviewing a guest complaint near the lobby bar when he noticed Lucy sitting alone. At first, he assumed her family was checking out. Then he saw her lips turning blue. He called emergency services and used an epinephrine injector from the hotel's first aid station, while another employee searched for her family. They left a note at the desk. He said, Woody handed me a photocopy. It was written on resort stationery in my mother's handwriting. O you are grandi ter losuai is restinientage lo bby. She cannot gidentai was ixgar sign. Pile asilkakar saiti heritilratiran aroin finder pm, shhasapion. Lucy did not have a phone. My father had taken it from her that morning, because he said she was spending too much time texting me. I read the note 3 times. Then Dr. Reed entered. He explained that Lucy had likely eaten a pastry containing cashew flour at breakfast. Her reaction had progressed rapidly. The inhaler could not have stopped it. What would have happened if Mr. Turner had not noticed her? I asked. The doctor looked at Lucy, then at me. A delay of several more minutes could have been fatal. Fatal. The word did not need to be spoken loudly. It filled the room. My family returned to the hospital at 3:42 that afternoon, sunburned and irritated. My mother still wore a white beach cover-up over her swimsuit. Nathan carried an expensive camera. Brooke had salt dried in her hair. My father entered first. He looked at Lucy, then at me. Well, he said, she's fine now. I stared at him, lowered his voice. Stop making trouble, Claire. This was a misunderstanding. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I simply took my phone from my purse, walked into the hallway, and called the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. The dispatcher asked me whether I wanted to report possible child neglect. Yes, I said. My father was standing 15 feet away. He heard every word. His expression changed from irritation to disbelief. Then disbelief became rage. You are not calling the police on your own parents. I turned my back and continued giving the dispatcher the facts. Lucy's age, the breathing difficulty, the written note, the missing phone, the excursion, the emergency treatment, the doctor's warning. The dispatcher told me to remain at the hospital and preserve all messages. When I ended the call, my father stepped close enough that I could smell sunscreen on his shirt. You have no idea what you're doing. Actually, I did. Investigations had rules. First, protect the vulnerable person. Second, preserve evidence. Third, document statements before people have time to coordinate their lies. I opened a new note on my phone and wrote down everything each family member had told me. Nathan said they did not know it was serious. My mother said Lucy was being dramatic. My father said the hotel had agreed to supervise her. Brooke said they thought Lucy had fallen asleep. 4 adults, 4 stories. None of them matched. A deputy named Carla Ruse arrived within 40 minutes. She spoke to me first, then to Dr. Reed, then to Ellie. After that, she asked to interview Lucy with a pediatric nurse present. My mother objected. She is upset. This woman is traumatizing her. Deputy Ruiz looked at her calmly. Your granddaughter was treated for a life-threatening medical emergency after left without an adult guardian. I am trying to understand what happened. My mother folded her arms. We were never told it was life-threatening. Lucy heard that. From the bed she said, I told you I couldn't breathe. No one spoke. My mother looked down. Deputy Ruiz asked the family to wait outside. That was the first time I saw fear in my father's face. Not guilt, fear. There is a difference. Guilt looks inward. Fear looks for an escape. The deputy collected the note, photographed Lucy's missing phone text history from my device, and requested that the resort preserve camera footage. When she asked who had legal responsibility for Lucy during the trip, my father said, all of us. Nathan immediately said, Mom and Dad were in charge. My mother said, Claire never told us about any serious allergy. Brooke said, I was supervising my own children. They turned on each other in less than 3 minutes. I should have felt satisfied. I did not. I felt tired. Lucy was discharged the next morning with 2 epinephrine injectors, a referral to an allergy specialist, and strict instructions never to ignore early symptoms again. On the drive home, she slept with her head against the window. My phone rang constantly at every call. At noon, my father sent a medieval tonight campant. I took a screenshot. At 12:07, my mother wrote urviatiaun kanochasarvia epilik skendel. I took another 15. Nathan ril iftch hotel relabus's vidi benkildi lost t bank kontara ct. That message caught my attention. My father owned Bennett Executive Transport, a regional luxury car service that provided chauffeured vehicles for banks, lawns, and political events. The company was his pride. He had started with one used Lincoln when I was a child and expanded into a fleet of 32 vehicles. Nathan ran operations. My mother handled client relations. For years, they had their business as proof that their judgment was superior to everyone else's. They also depended heavily on one major contract with Commonwealth Heritage Bank. That contract required background checks, incident reporting, and compliance with a morality clause for senior management. A police neglect investigation involving the company's founder would not automatically destroy the business, but lying about it could. My family knew what I did for a living. They also knew I'd helped rewrite their compliance manual 2 years earlier, when the bank demanded stronger policies. They had asked me to do it for free. That night, after Lucy was asleep, I opened the old files. I told myself I was only checking the policy language. But another document caught my attention. A certificate of insurance, then a driver training report, then a spreadsheet showing vehicle inspection dates. Something felt wrong. The inspection signatures were identical across multiple months. I zoomed in. Same angle, same pen pressure. Same tiny break in the letter R. Someone had copied the signatures. I called my ex-husband Daniel. Our marriage had ended peacefully enough, and we shared custody without drama. He was a civil engineer and one of the most patient people I knew. He arrived within 20 minutes. When I showed him the documents, he frowned. Were these submitted to the bank less? Do you think your family falsified them? I don't know. Then don't guess. That was why I trusted him. He never told me what I wanted to hear. He told me what was useful. The next morning, I received a call from Deputy Ruiz. The hotel footage had been secured. She could not share the entire video, but she confirmed several facts. My family entered the lobby at 8:36. Lucy was visibly distressed. At 8:41, she bended with her hands around her throat. At 8:43, my mother gave her the inhaler. At 8:46, my father pointed toward the lobby couch. At 8:48, all 4 adults and 2 children walked out. Lucy tried to follow. My father turned around, pointed back at the couch, and left. The excursion shuttle departed at 8:52. Illy found Lucy on the floor at 9:07. 15 minutes. 15 minutes between abandonment and rescue. I asked Deputy Ruiz whether the footage had audio. Some, she said. What could you hear? She paused. Your daughter said, please don't leave me. I sat down. There are moments when anger does not feel hot. It feels like ice spreading through your bones. That was the moment I stopped seeing this as a family conflict. It was a pattern. They minimized pain. They protected appearances. They punished anyone who interrupted the story they told about themselves. And now they were trying to force me to protect that story too. By Wednesday, my father had hired an attorney. The attorney called me with a proposal. My parents would pay Lucy's medical bills. They would also fund a family vacation of my choice. In return, I would issue a written statement saying the incident resulted from confusion regarding supervision. I listened politely. Then I asked, does your client know the hotel has video? The attorney went silent. I continued. Does he know there is a written note falsely claiming my daughter had a phone? Does he know he texted me demanding I withdraw a police report? Does he know the medical staff documented a potentially fatal delay? The attorney cleared his throat. I was not given all those details. I thought not. I ended the call. 10 minutes later, Nathan appeared at my house. Daniel was there with Lucy, building a model of the solar system at the kitchen table. Nathan knocked hard enough to shake the glass. I met him on the porch. You need to fix this, he said. Lucy almost died. She didn't. The words came so easily that I almost did not believe I had heard them. I stepped closer. You are using her survival as evidence that your decision was acceptable. Nathan looked away. Dad says the bank is asking questions. Why? Someone reported the investigation. Was it true? That is not the point. It is exactly the point. He lowered his voice. If the bank suspends the contract, 30 people could lose their jobs. That was a real concern. It was also a shield. My family had always placed innocent people between themselves and consequences. Then your father should cooperate honestly, I said. Nathan laughed without humor. You know him. Yes, I said. I finally do. Before leaving, he said something that changed the direction of everything. You think this is just about the hotel? I watched him walk to his car. Then I went inside and wrote down his exact words. That night, I could not sleep. Nathan's sentence repeated in my mind. Dad has covered worse. At 20:30 in the morning, I opened the company documents again. I searched old emails, shared folders, and file I had created while helping with the bank compliance review. I still had access because Nathan had never changed the password. That carelessness told me something important. People who believe they are untouchable rarely protect the evidence properly. I found vehicle maintenance reports marked complete on days when the vehicles had been used for client transportation. I found background check forms approved before the checks were actually returned. I found a complaint from a female driver named Jasmine Cole. She reported that a senior client had touched her inappropriately during a trip. My father's response was attached. Dionutskali. Seal iandravianingi eximid air patifs. My hands went cold. The complaint had never been entered into the official incident system. Then I found another file. A collision involving one of the company SUVs 18 months earlier. The driver had reported brake failure. The official report blamed driver error. A maintenance invoice showed the brakes had been recommended for immediate replacement 6 weeks before the crash. The work had been postponed. The injured driver had resigned. The bank had never been informed. This was no longer just about my daughter. But I had to be careful. I could not illegally access information or misuse confidential records. I was still listed as an authorized compliance consultant in the shared system, but I needed legal advice before doing anything. The next morning, I contacted an attorney named Marisol Grant, who specialized in whistleblower and employment cases. I explained everything. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, "You have 3 separate issues. First, your daughter's neglect case. Second, possible witness pressure from your family. Third, potential fraud and safety violations at the company. What should I do? Preserve what you already have. Do not alter files. Do not search beyond your authorized access. And do not warn your family." For the next 2 days, I followed access logs. I saved the messages from my father. I created a timeline. I did not contact the bank. I did not contact the media. I did not post anything online. My family, however, began destroying themselves. My mother posted a long statement on Facebook. She described Lucy's emergency as child's panic attack amplified by an overprotective parent. She said the family had been unfairly targeted. She included a photograph of Lucy without my permission. The post spread through their business network. Former employees began commenting. One wrote, "This company always blames the vulnerable person." Another wrote, "Ask them what happened to Jasmine." My mother deleted the comments. Screenshots had already been taken. The next morning, Commonwealth Heritage Bank temporarily suspended new bookings with Bennett Executive Transport pending review. My father called me immediately. "You contacted them." "No, you are lying." "I have not spoken to the bank." "Then call them and defend us." "I will not make a false statement." "You are destroying the company your family built." "No," I said. "You are meeting the consequences of how you built it." He shouted for almost a minute. I let him. Then he said, "If you continue this, you are no longer my daughter." That sentence would have broken me 10 years earlier, maybe even 1 year earlier. But after hearing Lucy say, "Please don't leave me," it sounded small. "You stopped acting like my father before I stopped acting like your daughter," I said. Then I ended the call. The following Monday, Deputy Ruiz informed me that the sheriff's office had referred the matter to county prosecutor and child protective services. Because Lucy had been left in a public place during a medical emergency, the case was being treated seriously. No one promised a dramatic courtroom scene. Real justice rarely moves like television. It moves through interviews, reports, evidence requests, and long periods of silence. But something else happened quickly. The hotel's insurance carrier contacted my attorney. The resort feared liability because staff had allowed my family to leave after seeing Lucy in distress. However, the video also showed an important fact. A front desk clerk had tried to stop my father. He waved her away. Then he told clearly enough for the microphone to record. "Her mother encourages this behavior. Ignore it." My father had not misunderstood. He had made a decision. Marisol called me after reviewing the transcript. "This is strong evidence," she said. "Strong enough for what?" "For accountability." At home, Lucy was recovering physically, but emotionally she had changed. She no longer wanted to sleep alone. She checked food labels repeatedly. If I left the room, she asked where I was going. One evening, she stood in the kitchen holding her emergency injector. "Mom, what if nobody believes me next time?" I knelt in front of her. "I will believe you aren't there." Then you tell another adult, and another, and another. You keep asking until someone listens. She looked down. "Grandpa said strong people don't make scenes." I took her hand. "Sometimes making a scene is how strong people stay alive." That night, I decided my father would never again teach my daughter that silence was safety. The next morning, I made the second quiet call. Not to the bank, not to the police. To Jasmine Cole. Her number was in the old complaint file. I asked whether she was willing to speak with my attorney. At first, she said nothing. Then she asked, "Why now?" "Because I found your report. And because my family used the same method on my daughter. They minimized danger, blamed the person who was hurt, and protected the institution." Jasmine took a long breath. "I kept copies." Those 3 words opened the door. Jasmine had emails, schedule changes, witness names, and a voice recording of Nathan telling her to stop trying to become a lawsuit. She also knew about the driver injured in the brake failure crash. Within a week, Marisol represented 3 former employees. A formal report went to the bank, the State Labor Agency, and the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles Commercial Licensing Division. I did not create the evidence. I did not invent the misconduct. I only stopped hiding it. My father held a family meeting at the old house that Sunday. He demanded I attend. I almost refused. Then Marisol said, "Go only if you feel safe. Bring a witness. Do not negotiate. Do not surrender evidence." Daniel came with me. My parents, Nathan, and Brooke were waiting in the dining room. The room looked exactly as it during my childhood. The same dark table. The same framed photographs. The same chair where my father sat as if he were a judge. He slid a document toward me. It was a settlement agreement. They offered me $200,000. In exchange, I would withdraw cooperation from the neglect case, state that Lucy's symptoms had been misunderstood, return all company documents, and agree never to discuss the business. Daniel read the first page and laughed softly. My father glared at him. "This is family business." Daniel set the paper down. "You made a child's medical emergency part of your business." Nathan leaned forward. "Claire, take the money. Use it for Lucy's education." I looked at him. "You want me to teach her that truth is something wealthy people can purchase?" Brooke started crying. My mother said, "We made one mistake." I opened my folder. Inside were printed still images from the hotel video, provided legally through my attorney. The first showed Lucy bent forward near the lobby couch. The second showed my family walking toward the doors. The third showed Lucy reaching after them. The fourth showed her alone. I placed the images on the table one by one. "You made a decision at 8:41, another at 8:43, another at 8:46, another at 8:48. Then you made more decisions when you lied to me, pressured me, blamed Lucy, and tried to buy my silence." No one moved. My father stared at the photographs. For 1 second, I thought he might finally understand. Then he pushed them away. "You have always enjoyed humiliating this family." That was the moment I felt a thing. No anger. No sadness. No hope. Just clarity. This meeting is over. As Daniel and I reached the front door, my mother called after me. "What are we supposed to do now?" I turned around. "Tell the truth." The consequences arrived in stages. First, Commonwealth Heritage Bank terminated the transport contract after an independent audit found falsified inspection records, incomplete background checks, and undisclosed safety incidents. Then the state suspended 6 vehicles from commercial service pending inspection. The labor agency opened a retaliation inquiry based on Jasmine's complaint and the records of 2 other former employees. My father blamed me publicly. That lasted until the company's own electronic logs showed Nathan had altered maintenance dates. Nathan blamed my father. Brooke moved with the children to her sister's house. My mother stopped posting online. The business did not collapse overnight. Reality is rarely that neat. Some employees found new jobs. A smaller transport company purchased part of the fleet. Several drivers later told me they were relieved someone had finally exposed the safety problems. My father's greatest fear had been losing his reputation. What he lost was control over the story. He could no longer say he was the man who protected everyone. The documents said otherwise. The neglect case moved more slowly. My parents and Nathan were not sent to prison. The prosecutor offered a resolution that included supervised contact restrictions, mandatory child safety education, community service, and probation conditions tied to truthful cooperation. Some people might call that too lenient. At first, part of me did too. Then Marisol reminded me that justice was not only punishment, it was also protection. The court order meant my family could not contact Lucy directly. They could not appear at her school. They could not pressure her for forgiveness. They could not rewrite what happened in private. The official record existed. That mattered. The hotel settled Lucy's civil claim and changed its policy. No adult could leave a child under 12 in the lobby without a registered guardian. Staff received emergency response training. Ely Turner was promoted to general manager. When I thanked him, he shook his head. "I just believed her." That sentence still affects me. He just believed her. A stranger gave my daughter what her own family refused to give her. Attention, trust, urgency. 6 months later, Lucy and I returned to the coast. Not to the same resort. A smaller place farther north. Daniel joined us for the weekend, and we rented a little cottage with peeling blue paint and a porch that faced the dunes. Lucy had completed allergy testing. Cashews were confirmed as the trigger. She carried her emergency injectors in a bright purple case decorated with stars. The first morning, she stood at the edge of the water while small waves covered her feet. I watched her breathe. In out, easy and steady. She turned toward me. "Mom, are you watching?" "Always." She smiled. Then she ran into the shallow water. Later that evening, we sat on the porch eating grilled corn and watching the sky turn orange. Lucy asked a question I knew would come eventually. "Do you hate Grandpa?" I thought carefully before answering. "No." "Why not?" "Because hate would keep him too close to me." She considered that. "Do you forgive him?" "Not yet." "Do you have to?" "No." That answer surprised her. I continued. "Forgiveness is not pretending something did not happen. It is not giving someone another chance to hurt you, and it is not something people can demand because they are uncomfortable with consequences." Lucy leaned against my shoulder. "What is it then?" "Maybe someday it will mean I can remember him without feeling angry. But whether that happens or not, I can still move forward." We listened to the waves for a while. Then she said, "I'm glad you made trouble." I looked at her. She smiled slightly. Grandpa said you were making trouble, but the trouble made people tell the truth. I kissed the top of her head. Sometimes it does. A year after the incident, I received a letter from my father. It was handwritten. He did not apologize. He explained. He said he had grown up in a house where sickness was treated as weakness. He said he believed Lucy was copying my anxiety. He said the excursion cost more than he could afford to lose. He said he panicked when the investigation threatened the company. He said he hoped time would help me see his side. I read the letter once. Then I placed it in a file with the hospital report, the hotel note, and the court order. Explanations can help us understand how harm happened. They do not erase responsibility. My mother sent birthday cards to Lucy through our attorney. We returned them unopened. Nathan entered a diversion agreement related to the company records and later found work managing a warehouse. He emailed me once. I am sorry it went this far. I replied with one sentence. It went this far when you walked onto the boat. He never contacted me again. As for me, I left corporate compliance and started an independent consulting firm focused on whistleblower protection and workplace safety. Jasmine became my first employee. She is now our director of investigations. On the wall of our office is a simple framed sentence th first t parasiol didonio et havt hotel itl on. Lucy chose it. Today, she is 11. She still checks labels. She still carries her medicine. But she sleeps in her own room again. She joined the school science club and gave a presentation about allergic reactions and emergency response. At the end, she told her classmates, if your body says something is wrong, keep asking for help. Her teacher called me afterward. She was very brave, she said. I almost corrected her. Bravery was not the absence of fear. Lucy had been terrified. Bravery was speaking while frightened. Bravery was asking again after trusted adults dismissed her. Bravery was surviving without allowing their shame to become hers. My family once believed silence protected strong people. They were wrong. Silence protected them. The truth protected my daughter. And that is the part I will never forget. My father told me she was fine and ordered me to stop making trouble. So I did something better than argue. I made sure the truth became louder than his name. And from that day forward, nobody in my family ever mistook my silence for permission again.